Jen Ferrara, and this is STORYCRAFT Frames Per Second, a conversation about the art, work, and practice of telling stories. This conversation is hosted by RETN, Dreamlike Pictures, VCAM, Vermont International Film Foundation, and I'm talking with Art Bell, the creator of Dreamlike Pictures, a creative services media company based here in Burlington, Vermont. Hi, Art.
Hi there.
Prior to Dreamlike Pictures, Art was Chief Technology Officer of Oxygen Media, which he co-founded with Geraldine Laybourne, Oprah Winfrey, and the Walt Disney Company. Art is also the co-founder of Alias Research, known for Maya 3D animation and special effects software. Art, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. This is amazing to get time to talk about the story.
Yeah.
We don't ever talk about it, we just do it.
Just doing it all the time. You're so prolific.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really interested in hearing and saying again your experience. You've been on the business side of media for a really long time. What was the shift to storytelling, or have you always been a storyteller?
I think I'm not really, I think I'm a reluctant storyteller or late to. I never went to film school. I did go to Burlington College. I took one class in audio for feature films. I have no idea why I took the class. I wasn't doing anything, I was working. And since college, I've been on the corporate side of the entertainment industry. And my partner at Alias always said to me, he said, never cross that line. He said, stay on this side of it. And so I have crossed that line, and I make a lot less money, but I like my life a lot more. I sleep better, I'm healthier, I'm happier. And I'm slowly becoming an artist. And I think I definitely backed into storytelling. And the rules that we have, or the guides that we have that I gave to you, I think those are things that I've gotten from people who are way smarter than I am. But we live by those. Because I've never written a script, I've never written a feature film script, and a lot of my filmmaking friends, that's what they do. So I feel, in some ways, very corporate, but everything we do, we made 16 15-second commercials last year. Those are all stories. They all have a beginning, a middle, and end. We made 30 seconds, we made 60s, we make short films, we make music videos, but everything is a story. Everything we shoot, I shoot everything. I think about beginning, middle, and end, establishing shot, tight shots, cutaways. I think about that with everything we do.
And now you're doing these very quickly. Right. I mean, for the average person, this sounds like a humongous amount of work. I don't know how you manage to do this many projects in a year. Do you have some kind of structure? You've talked about rules. Do you have a structure that you work with when you approach a new project? We've
really pushed hard to develop a workflow because we're small. There's two full-time people, 2 part-time people, and we have to trust the workflow. We have to trust the process. And we make television commercials. Especially with politicians, they always want to write a script, they always want to wordsmith, they always want to be perfect. And I say, people don't believe perfection. They believe when things are real and they're imperfect. So we shoot in a documentary style, but we shoot, we interview people, we do transcriptions, and we let the story follow what the people say. But it has to fit a hole. It has to fit a 15-second hole, a 30-second hole, a 60-second hole.
Yeah.
And but it always works. And I used to worry about it in the middle. I never worry about it now. I trust the process so much that if all the pre-production, if we did everything right, I know a good spot will fall out of it. And I think they do. I don't think we've made a dud in a while.
Wow,
so,
that's
I think,
awesome.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And so you're just talking about politicians. You're working with clients as the norm,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So how does that look? I think I don't know if I want to speak for anyone in particular, but a lot of people, especially let's say students, film students, they start with this idea of this thing they're going to make, and it's their vision, and it's maybe often a solo vision or a class project. You're working with people who you don't necessarily know when you start working with them, and somehow the two of you have to come together and have this shared idea. How do you navigate that? How do you find the story coming from someone you've never met before?
I think every client, they're an expert in their business. But I think we are experts in the audience, and I fight for the audience. They can have all the corporate doublespeak they want. They can bring all their jargon. They can try to wordsmith it, but if the people we interview don't say it, then it doesn't get cut in. So I think they are the experts, and they have to live with it long after we're gone.
Right.
They live with the commercial, and some of them live with them for years. And if we make a brand film, they play them. I mean, we did a thing for Gifford Medical Center 7 years ago. They're still using it for their recruiting film, and it was shot in standard def. I'm kind of embarrassed they're still using it, but it works for them. It says what it needed to say. So I let them fight for their expertise, and I try to ask for, let us fight for the audiences, and it tends to work.
And so, that's great. Yeah, I mean, that seems like a real challenge. I think what I'd like to do is watch one of your pieces and see if we can talk about it. And just talking about working with a client and finding the story there, we've got this piece, the Community National Bank video. Do you want to say anything to set it up before we watch it?
Sure. Community National Bank called us up, and I had never heard of them. I didn't know that they were the second oldest bank in Vermont. They've got $2 billion in assets, and they're everywhere but Chittenden County. And they have no desire to be in Chittenden County. They're in all these little small towns. And I said, well, you should come down and visit us. And we've got a nice studio. And they said, why don't you come up and see us? So I went up to Troy, Vermont, which is like 10 miles past nowhere. And their head office is in Derby Line. There's 84 people in their head office. And they're a big bank. And so I said, I always ask them, what problem are you trying to solve? And shortly I figured out that they are a bank with $2 billion in assets, that they're everywhere in Vermont. They're one of the oldest banks in the state, and nobody's ever heard of them. So I created this campaign called Community is Where You Build It. So this is the fourth we've made, and we follow some entity that has been helped by the bank. So they really are building community by being a part of it. So you'll see this should make sense.
Okay. All right, so we're going to watch Community is Where You Build It.
Right, so if you've heard of Lost Nation Brewery, Lost Nation, they talked to everybody about trying to get money, and they really couldn't get money. And one of the founders of Lost Nation, his daughter went to school with one of the managers at Community National Bank, and she said, oh, talk to us. So very quickly they got their multi-millions of dollars, and they built their thing, and now it's the hottest thing in Morrisville. It's a great restaurant, and they're cranking out beer. And I was in Brooklyn the other day working, and there was this beer, they have a beer called Gosa, which is a sour beer. And it was on the menu in Brooklyn. I said, why do you have this little Vermont beer on? And he said, well, sour beer is a very unique beer, and these guys are the best at it. So I said,
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right, well, let's watch.
Okay.
What I really wanted to do, make a natural, organic product that people could consume and that I could feel good about them consuming.
We started talking about this in roughly 2009.
So we could keep talking and nothing will happen, or we have to do something. So that's when it started to crystallize more.
Community National was recommended to us. We came in and we met with Heather. It was just perfect. It was a perfect fit.
Alan and Jamie came to me with a very solid plan to start a brewery.
Everything with the bank was very, very smooth.
The bank was awesome.
And so now they have not only a great business brewing honest beer, but they have a wonderful beer garden and tap room that support good food and good conversations in the community.
We have more projects in the works, and the first place we'll turn will be Community National Bank.
So one of the things I love about that piece is that they're talking about banking, they're talking about business, but I'm seeing beer, I'm seeing ribs, I'm totally thinking about the food and the beer and the like energy that people are having, you know, this good time. And I love how that's a bank video. Like, were they into that idea when you pitched that to them? Because that doesn't seem like you're talking much about their business.
I know, we just made another one. We just shot up at Kingdom Trails. Kingdom Trails is this amazing place I'd never been to. It's like, you know, there's 61 farms and businesses that have allowed them to be on their land, and Community National has been their bank since the 80s. And same thing, it's going to have very little banking in it. But we're a marketing agency that makes video. We're not really a video production company. So the tagline, community is where you build it, they love that. So they're just basically letting us run, and they recommend that. I said, give me some clients, and we talk to them. And I'd look for clients that I think genuinely got helped by the bank, and that they built, that the bank had a material help in making them. And these guys were great. These guys are very real. These guys love the bank loves them. The woman sitting there is the bank manager who's eating, and her parents are in the background because they wanted to be there. They wanted to be a part of it. So and I mean, the trendy term is branded entertainment. And I think that's what this is. But, you know, my job is to make people not pick up the remote and change the channel. And if we can make something that keeps them there, then that's why, you know, like one of the rules that I have is, you know, open with a weird shot. So, you know, that little thing of the beer cans on the line, you know, that's just what, you know, and people ask us all the time, how do you make a viral video? And I say, you know, make the first 10 seconds great, and maybe they'll stay for the next 10 seconds. And commercials, to me, commercials they're a joke, and everything is driving towards the punchline, and the punchline is the last shot. So this whole commercial from the first shot is just driving to the last shot. And the first commercial I made was for a company called Rossignol, when they used to be over on Industrial Avenue. And a friend of mine who works for ESPN, he said, well, congratulations, you got a 60-second commercial, so you have 900 opportunities to screw up, because there's 900 frames in a 60-second commercial. And so we touch every frame. We color correct every frame. We tweak everything. We cut and we cut and we cut until it's left and doesn't feel rushed, but looks like that.
So, okay, so a shot like the beer being poured into the glass. What did you do to make that shot, the light, and just how it was just so glowy? And
in our studio, we'd never done a beer commercial before, and so we just did this thing called YouTube. And we looked on YouTube, and we found this old guy who did all the Coke commercials. And he talked about how he faked all the Coke commercials. So we went and did what he did. We bought glycerin, we mixed the glycerin with the water, we put it on the glass, and so we just tested and tested till we had it looking right. And then we went up to their brewery, and they have a bar there, and we took over the bar one morning, and we set it up. We set up the lights, and we set up the motorized dollies, but we already knew how to do it because the Coke guy taught us how to do it.
And so what's the glycerin in the glass? What does that do?
So what looks like beautiful, like chilled frost on the glass, that's all faked.
It's like soap, basically?
Well, glycerin is like, it's an essence of soap, yeah. And you apply it, and it looks perfect. It looks, you know, it works. I mean, we all think that's beer, but I mean, when we made that, we got there about 8 o'clock. We set up, we started shooting about 10, and we had to do a lot of tests, a lot of screw ups. Dolly wasn't right, lights weren't right, and so within an hour, we had like 20 glasses of beer that were 5% used. And then we were happy, we got the shot, and then he said, okay, you guys poured that, you got to drink it all. And it's now 9:30 in the morning drinking sour beer, so we were good. So,
that's probably a pretty fun project to be working on.
No, I mean, I tell people that we become momentary experts in so many different areas, and then we forget everything we knew because we go on to the next thing. So we go deep, and then we get out.
There's got to be only so much brain space you can have, right? How much hard drive you can store it on.
And I mean, every corporation we work with, they're busy. They've got so much going on, and we have one job. We have one job to get in and make one story.
Right.
So we get to focus really. When I was at Oxygen and Alias, I used to hate consultants. I thought they were always trying to steal my job because they were focused on, you know, they were digging in. And I realized that I'm a consultant now, but I always tell people, like, look, my job is to put myself out of a job. I want to come in here, I want to do a really good job for you, but I'm not threatening anybody. But let us, you know, we go deep. And I think it's the only way we can do it is to go deep.
So again, these guys who you interviewed, going deep, like they're experts in their area. They're probably not television talent usually. And so you had to go in there and make them feel comfortable enough to be on camera. How did you do that?
I mean, it's all in the pre-production. You know, I research what's important to them. I find out about their families. I find out about their history. And then I try to, you know, we have a big Hollywood cinema camera, and the bigger the camera, generally the less lights you need. So our sets never look like this. We never need this much light. We try to make people feel comfortable on those locations, and I just let them talk. They never worked a script. I never give them the questions ahead of time. You get me a script, I didn't read it. I didn't look at it. And I know if I ask them questions for 20 minutes, I'm gonna get 15 or 20 seconds of great stuff out of there. Because if they give me 15 or 20 seconds, and then the client gets 15 or 20 seconds, and we got some B-roll, that's a 60-second spot, we're done. You only get a chance to make, you know, you get about 24 to 36 shots in a 60-second spot. You get a chance to make 3 or 4 corporate points. That's about all you get. So everybody brings a boatload of benefits they want to put in, but at some point we have to be ruthless and say what's most important, what really works. So, but I really want people to feel comfortable there. You know, especially, you know, I traveled with Howard Dean when he ran for president, and I've interviewed this woman, and she was so earnest, and she was so fervent, and she was, after it was done, she came over and she goes, "How did I look?" You know, and I thought, well, I thought she was going to ask me what she said, but she wanted to know how she looked. And you know, I think our job is to make people look great. We have to, I mean, beauty is a given now. I mean, I think the bar is set so high. We've got to work hard to make things look great just to get people to stay around. So.
Yeah. Sorry. Spruce myself up a little bit thinking about that.
Yeah.
Whew. Well, speaking of beauty, actually, this is a really great segue into your next video. This is the Salton Sea.
Okay.
First of all, I clearly did very poorly in geography. Where is the Salton Sea?
I know. I've always wanted to go. I've heard about the Salton Sea for years, and I had so much misinformation about it. I'll just tell you briefly that in the 1890s, in Southwest California, the Colorado River overflowed its banks for about a year. And so what we know about that part of California is Death Valley is there, so it's very hot, and the Bonneville salt flats are there, and the salt is between 15 and 50 feet thick. Wow. And so this river overflowed its banks, and at one particular area, it's 271 feet below sea level. So in a year, it made a lake 3 times the size of Lake Champlain.
Wow.
And it was inland, and it was salt water. So in the 20s, it was much more popular than Palm Springs. People built hotels there, and it was because it was salt water, inland salt water. But there were some issues they didn't consider. One, that it didn't really have natural springs, no more water was flowing into it, and that there was 50 feet thick of salt. So back in the 20s, it was the same salinity as the ocean. Now it's between 10 and 50 times the salinity of the ocean. So in the last couple of years, it has started to really die, and it will be dead in the next couple of years. The federal government in the 50s, when it was already going bad, they decided to bring in saltwater fish, and they put saltwater fish in there, and they lasted until 5 or 10 years ago. And the last fish was the fish we all know, which is the tilapia. But now what's happening is the salinity is so high, the tilapia fish can live, but when they give birth, their babies can't live and they're dying. So this weird side benefit is pelicans love eating the salty, dead tilapia. And when you go there, this is only a minute long. This was a test of Instagram just moved to a minute, and I just wanted to do it for my own benefit. I want to see what could I do in a minute. So when you drive there, you drive a long way and you see nothing, and then you'll see an RV like 500 yards off the road with a no trespassing sign. And then you drive another couple miles, and it's like an abandoned part of the country.
Wow.
And then we talked to this guy, and I said, "What's going on here?" And he said, "This is kind of the center of crystal meth making in America. It's about 500 or 600 square miles of nothing. It's very, very, very hot. There's no cell service. There's no gas stations. There's no food. There's no nothing. There's 3 cops for 500 square miles."
Wow.
And they said, basically, the police leave them alone, and they leave the police alone. And the guy said to me, "If you see a no trespassing sign, whether it's legit or not, you should obey it. Because if you don't, you probably end up in the lake, and nobody will ever find you, nobody will ever care."
Wow.
So we went there to scout to shoot a music video, and by 9 o'clock in the morning, it was so hot, and the bugs were so bad, we just said, "Okay, we're good, we're out of here." So.
Well, let's watch this minute that you made.
But to be fair, this was all shot on an iPhone. It was just a test. I was out there for work doing other things, but I just wanted to see what I could do. And an iPhone, like any other small phone, in good light, it can do okay. I mean, you judge, but it was made with an iPhone.
Awesome. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Wow. So that was a really powerful series of images put together on your iPhone. You have an audio track. Did you do, and in the beginning you had some sped up footage.
I was just doing what the iPhone can do. You know, it can shoot slow motion. The new ones can shoot slow motion. They have so much power in it. They shoot 4K. So,
wow. So you didn't edit, you didn't take any of that into post and do anything with it?
No. If it's slow motion, it's because it was slow motion in camera. Everything was in camera. And I may have stabilized the odd shot, but that was all done in the phone.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, the story to me is, where are we? We started in a city, which is Las Vegas, and you drive from Las Vegas to Palm Springs, and you go through Joshua Tree, then you go through the Mojave Desert, and then you go to Palm Springs, and you take a right about 30 miles, and you get to the Salton Sea. So that's all in one. I was just, for those of you who know, Instagram was allowing 15-second videos. In the last couple of months, they said, let's go to a minute. And I thought, okay, let's make a minute video. So I thought, I have this thing, it's on an iPhone, it's small, Instagram's small, let's try it. It was just a test. So.
Well, it's a very powerful test. It turned out
Thanks.
very nice. I think, you know, one of the rules you were telling me about is the camera is the point of view. Can you tell me a little more about how you think about that when you're telling a story, when you're choosing your shots?
Yeah, I think all the rules that I use and that we kind of live with, people way smarter than me gave them to me. But you know, somebody said to me once, you know, point the camera at the story. And when I got there, there really wasn't much there. What you see is picture being on Church Street, and the lake used to be on Church Street, and now the lake is where the lake is in Burlington. And from here, from Church Street to the lake, is crusty, white, ugly, hot, you know, bug-infested crap. So the story is the odd thing you see. Like that, somebody living in that trailer, you know, that boat was in the water, you know, 15 or 20 years ago. That was waterfront property. And now it has receded because there's nothing filling it. So I was trying to point the camera at what would tell me what's the desolation that's left. And
Like you're saying, what's missing? Or,
right. It's like, why is a boat half submerged into the ground, and why do you see a boat on land? Well, because it used to be in the water, but there's no water anymore. So, and the things I didn't put in, there were some. We did see. I didn't know much about making crystal meth, but crystal meth stinks when it's cooking, and so you'd be driving down, and there'd be like a mile of nothing, and then you'd see an RV like literally half a mile off the road with a no trespassing sign, and you'd see 2 smokestacks out of the RV. Wow. And they were cooking crystal meth, but because it stinks, it's that far away. So I just thought, I'm going to leave that stuff out.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I think what you ended up with was really gorgeous. And
Thank you.
The other thing I was thinking about is just the idea of like the using what you have and making video. We do workshops. RETN does workshops using iPads and teaching people to work with whatever you're doing. Just the fact that you were scouting a video shoot and that you're probably going to be using some bigger cameras for that, I'm guessing.
And that, like all the time lapse, there's time lapse built into the iPhone. You know, there's hyperlapse, there's time lapse. Those are all features that are built into the phone. They're just as is. They just work amazingly well.
That's awesome.
So,
really cool. So you didn't do much with post-production in that, but on a larger piece, post-production is a big part of your work. And I know, we're not even talking much about the animation work that you do. But how do you have some rules or structures for how you get started once you've done these things? I can imagine if, for example, the documentary, you're letting someone talk, and you're letting them talk for 20 minutes, and you're using 3. What are some of the rules you're giving yourself when you get to post and you're looking at it all?
right. I think whether you're writing for print, I think I used to be intimidated by a blank timeline, which I think is analogous to being intimidated by a blank sheet of paper. And now you go by that so fast you don't even see it. But some things I do, I think I talked about it with a commercial, I do tend to try to find the last shot first, and then I drive towards that last shot. So I try to find where am I going. So that boat shot, I knew that was my shot. And when I saw that I had a second boat shot, I wanted people to make sure that they saw that there was desolation there. So I didn't know where I was starting, but I knew where I was going. And because I only had a minute, I used the time lapse up front just to get the energy going right away, and then slow it down to get them to enjoy it at the end. But I think finding your last shot first. And I had a film at a film festival, and this woman, I'll call her an old diva, she said to me, she said, "Son, you have to leave him leaning." And I thought, leave him leaning. And I think, you know, what she was saying is make sure that you leave him wanting more. So we help a fair number of film students out. And one of the things I see in a lot of film student projects is they don't have the courage to end their film. So they end it 2 or 3 times. And, you know, and it's like, I think when the old Hollywood films, they used to say the end, it told us that it was over. And that's our job now, is to say the end without saying the end, have one declarative, definitive end to the film. And so I think, you know, when we're editing, I have no problem being ruthless. And those of you that work in print, you know the same terms. I mean, one of the terms is to kill your children. And, you know, you have a minute commercial and you have 2 minutes of great stuff. You've got to kill great stuff to let the greater stuff survive, or the more relevant stuff survive. So you kill your children every single day, and you don't even think about it. And so when the odd time I work on other people's stuff, I kill their children with no problem. Just, you know, so I didn't shoot it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So.
Do you find it harder though when it's your own?
No, I think I'm happy that I'm a ruthless editor. I did a television show for PBS for 2 years in New York, and we had to produce a half-an-hour show every 2 weeks. And when I first started, I was able to edit like 5 minutes in a day, and I thought, I'm really good. And then 2 years later, I could edit 30 minutes a day. But you had to get there, you had to become a two-handed editor, and you had to become ruthless. And I got those rules from people, again, who were better than me, but that's what made me do it. And I think, you know, I'm a very fast editor. Both of us are very fast editors, but you have to be, because there's so much good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Lost Nation commercial, so there was 2 interviews of 20 minutes each, probably 2 hours of B-roll that had to go into 60 seconds. So, and that's very typical.
That's a huge ratio.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of stuff you're throwing out.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not that film is free, but when you shoot digitally, it's your time. But you're always hunting for the best shot. And I just love wandering around. Like, I mean, they just let me loose. Every location we go to, they just let us loose, and we just shoot. You just look for what you like. So you look for what you think can add to the story. So.
It sounds like, you know, that idea that you do 10,000 hours of work and you become a master at whatever task, and you've had, partially because of the way you've been working, you've had that opportunity to make a lot of decisions and try and keep doing the work so that it's, as you said, you're able to do it much faster than you started.
Yeah, and I think it also, I mean, my life was in business. I was not an artist. I was a business person. So we approach it, I think, from the opposite end. It's a business to us first. So to make money, you also have to be quick. To be quick, you have to have workflows and processes and tools that work. So we spend money on workflow so we can stay small, but produce things quickly and change things quickly. And so.
Okay, so what do you do when you do get stuck? What's the bad? You gotta have a bad day someday, Art. I know you have a lot of good days, but what happens when you have that day? It just doesn't come together.
Well, we're doing a big project right now for a client, and it went south badly, and last Friday, and I honestly trusted in the process. I said to my coworker, I said, go home, you know, let me do it for a while. And so it's just because I know the stuff is in there. I know it's in there. And this happened to be a big 3D animation job, and we were having technical issues. But we had 5 machines running, and things were crashing. So every night, Burton actually is the client, and they came to us, and they have a pretty revolutionary idea to change snowboarding for the year 2018. But it's all manufacturing, it's all CAD data. It's never really been, they've never even seen it before. They've made some 3D models of it, but it doesn't really show off what it does. So they hired us to visualize what they're seeing. But the manufacturing data that they gave us was complicated, more complicated than they thought or that we expected. And we've done this before, but it was magnitudes more complicated. And it was bringing some of the biggest machines probably in the state, to our knees.
Wow.
And my animator, she was having a tough time. And so I just said, and I wasn't even paying, we have other clients, we usually have 4 or 5 jobs going on at the same time. So I hadn't even been involved in this really. So I just said, let me work for a while, go home. And so I worked on it all Friday night, and we have a security camera, and I grabbed the security camera and I dragged the 5 monitors over so I could watch the 5 jobs, and I set up security monitor because things were crashing all the time. And then I just sent her a link and I just said, here, from your house, just watch, and if one of them crashes, just come in, restart that one, and go home again. So we had this baby monitor. It's still running now. We're still watching it because we got another week and a half to go. But all of a sudden, I have to be there watching spinning lollipops all day long. But that's a long answer to your question. But I think it's taken us years to trust that we're getting good at this. But you have to make a lot of stuff. I mean, all I can hope for is that the stuff we make right now is the best it can be, and we'll make it better the next time. So once we agree on a price, I don't really care how much time it takes. It's not done till I like it. So
that's great. Well, I think we have one more piece that we'd like to see. It's called Dream.
Okay.
And maybe we should watch it and then talk about it.
Okay.
Does that sound okay? Or do you want to set it up a little
I'll
bit?
just set up a little bit.
Set up a little bit.
This was made by, I have a coworker who's a 3D animator, and she made this as a gift for me for last Christmas. And you put your headphones on, you're working, you don't know what you're doing. And so just before Christmas, she gave this to me. And I mean, you are all artists, so I really wanted to offer it to you as she offered it to me. So.
Yeah, it's a lovely piece, and I like how it, well, that there's no live action footage at all in it.
Right.
And it still feels there's so much movement, and.
Yeah, she went to SCAD, and I think they were brutal in terms of how much they had to produce, and I'm so lucky to have her. And so in the middle of all our work, she was able to crank this out.
Wow.
So
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice place to almost wrap up. I have one more question for you. You know, this was a lot about dream and dreaming, but doing, and audience and showing and making. This last piece we watched, and I think there's a lot of folks who are trying to make work. They're learning new technology. They're getting really interested because we were talking about the iPhone. It's so easy now to have the tools. What advice could you give to folks who are just getting started and trying to tell moving picture stories?
I mean, I have parents come in with their teenage kids with a similar question, and I often reference this book by Robert Rodriguez, who worked with Quentin Tarantino. And he wrote a book called Rebel Without a Clue. And I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, if your parents are going to give you 40 grand to go to film school, take the money and go make 10 $4,000 films. Because you're going to make crap, and you're going to make a lot of crap. And the best thing you can hope for is that your work gets less crappy as you go on. Because there's no way, I mean, I don't think you can get this in film school. I think you can see the tools, you can touch the tools, but you have to make, it's just like if you're a writer, you know what it's, you have to write and write and write and write. And so I think I have found what I'm supposed to be doing. But we do it 6 or 7 days a week and all the time. And we travel all the time I love traveling with the constraints of a phone. But I did upgrade to the new phone because I just wanted a little better camera. It just happens to make calls. I don't care that it makes calls. I care it had a little better camera in it. And so I think if people are going to make things, if people want to make things, they have to make them. And we have had years, we went through a couple of years of being bad at audio. And then we were bad at mixed light. And then, we were bad. And so it takes us a couple of years to overcome things that so each time, and so we keep raising our own bar. But that doesn't come instantly. You have to do that, and you have to figure out why. It is, when I gave talks at film schools, one of the things I say, because this gear is so cheap, it has never been easier to be mediocre. But it's hard to be really, really good. Yeah. And we occasionally make things that are really good. So it's a very sexy business, but it's a business. And, we burn a lot of bits, so.
Yeah. Well, these were some great tips from killing your children, finding the weird shot, knowing your last shot, and just making work.
Yep. And I gave some books for reference if you want to put those up later on.
Yeah, we'll put them up on our blog.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to share them with everybody.
Yep.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you for having me.
It was so great to have you here today.
No, this was a gift to me. So
good.
Yeah.
So this has been STORYCRAFT, Frames Per Second, presented by RETN, Dreamlike Pictures, VCAM, and Vermont International Film Foundation. For more information, go to retn.org/storycraft. I'm Jen Ferrara. Thanks for watching.